Getting out of Morocco and into Spain was unbelievably easy. I think I was quite clever in that I booked a Thursday morning crossing, and there weren't a lot of people going one way or the other. But I just had to wait and get on the ferry and then get off the ferry the other side. Nobody seemed particularly interested. They just waved me through. I did have to stop and get a stamp in the passport. Stupid Brexit. But other than that, it was relatively all right, except finding my way to Gibraltar from Algeciras was incredibly difficult. There are no signs saying Gibraltar. I secretly don't think the Spanish like Gibraltar. I have to admit, I don't much like Gibraltar. It's very, very strange. Again, getting in and out was unbelievably easy, but it's a weird little place. It's like a sort of rather seedy seaside town in Great Britain out of season. A lot of places are shut. It's all got little narrow lanes and things. It's very bizarre with this huge rock hanging over the whole thing, and odd people there, all look a bit sort of down at heel. It is one of the oddest places I've ever been to. I was here once before, about 55 years ago, when I flew in from Tangier in Morocco, having got, I thought, some dreadful disease, which turned out to be food poisoning, but it was lumps the size of cricket balls all over my body, and they were bright red as well. And when I woke up one morning, I thought, I must immediately get out of Morocco, get into civilization. Flew into Gibraltar. A doctor came over to the hotel and saw me, said, it's food poisoning, have you eaten anything? And I said, yes, I had some red snapper last night. He said, that'll do it. Gave me a pill. All of the red cricket balls went down, and actually I think that day I flew back to Tangier and continued my holiday, but I've not been here since then, and to be quite honest, although I'm here now, I wish I wasn't.
I saw you walking down the street. Your hair was hanging to your knees. Your waist was waving like a ship. The way you looked made me sick. I wish the glance you gave a smile. I
Honestly, I was glad to get out of the place. Not that it was easy on those tiny little lanes with my rather big car. There were pretty places in there, but the whole place has got that horrible, seedy, depressed, British negative thing. You see squaddies, soldiers all down the roads, and it's just awful. I really hated it. Anyway, out I got, which again was dead easy. Nobody seemed to bother. They didn't even look at my passport, let alone stamp it when I got back into Spain. So officially I've left Europe forever, because I've never apparently come back. I might as well be a murderer.
I am essentially a murderer. And let me tell you why. It wasn't intentional, but let me tell you why. When everything happened to me back in the year 2000, and we haven't gone into why, but one of the movers and shakers behind it all was publicist Max Clifford. He'd already had a go and worked very well on Gary Glitter, and he was very proud of that, and he then started to do the same for me, and he managed to find someone, and the whole thing took off. And as you know, I was wrongly convicted. I'm still appealing my wrongful conviction, and since then there have been 2 trials, both of which I've been acquitted on all charges, and also I went to prison, and that was it for a few years. I came out after serving 3.5 years of a 7-year sentence, and I was having lunch with an old friend of mine, and he said to me, you know, everybody I know thought this was appalling what happened to you and knew it wasn't true. But the thing that most amused everybody was Max Clifford's involvement, because they all knew that Max Clifford had a reputation for being the most dreadful sexual predator of young people. I said, well, I'd actually never heard that. And he said, oh, my wife's best friend was abused by Max Clifford when she was 15. And he then told me this story of how Max Clifford became friends with her parents, went down and stayed with them and all that kind of thing. So I said, are you sure this is true? Because the worst thing in the world, believe me, is to be falsely accused of something. And he said, I totally believe her, because not only is she very convincing and tells every detail of the story, but she won't do anything about it. Even though she can make a lot of money out of prosecuting Max Clifford, she refuses to do so. And for that reason alone, I'm sure she's speaking the truth. And I said, well, why does she refuse to do anything about it? And he said, well, her parents are still alive and it would destroy them. So I said, well, I understand that. Anyway, about a year or so later, her father died, and my friend told me about this, and I said, well, perhaps now is the time for her to do something about Clifford. And he went back to her, and she said, no, because my mother's still alive, although she's quite ill. I think she had dementia or something, and I really don't want to distress her. A year later, her mother died. And again, I said to my friend, well, perhaps now is the time. And again, his wife's lady friend said, well, I'm not too sure. Yes, you know, it wouldn't do. Obviously, both my parents are dead now, but I really don't want to get involved with that. But, you know, part of me says I should do. She was so furious with Max Clifford, not because of what he'd done with me, but because with her rather, but because he kept boasting about me. And she said, he's so hypocritical. He's done it with young girls under 16, and yet he's claiming praise for having destroyed Jonathan, who she knew from her friends had never been with anybody under the age of consent. Anyway, she was mulling about it, but she still wasn't sure. And then the Jimmy Savile thing happened. And indeed, at that point, I said, this is the time. She did do something about it. Max Clifford was arrested, oddly enough, on my birthday. And another friend of mine who knew all about this said, you must be over the moon. It's the best birthday present ever. And I said, you know what? I'm not, because I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And Max Clifford isn't my worst enemy. Anyway, he was arrested, he was prosecuted, he was found guilty, he was sent to prison, and he died. And most people would say karma. I go, well, you know what? Yes, karma, but I hate to say it, and I really don't like it, but I used karma, and the result was he died. And I hate that feeling, because essentially, morally, it does make me a murderer.
Back in the 1960s, I was writing songs about criminal activity. on my way from Gibraltar to Granada, a beautiful city, mainly with the most fantastic cathedral. And I have problems with all organised religions, talking about being gay, you got to be the other way. Almost every religion is anti-gay, says homosexuality is a sin, if not a crime. And I, some years ago, wrote a song called Jesus Can't You Leave Me, which essentially looked at the Christian attitude towards homosexuality, which remains completely illegal and not Christian in any way, causing many problems with many vicars. You can't help but think about things like that as you look around the wonderful cathedral in Granada.
Jesus, can't you leave me, leave me? I can live without you. All the life you taught me, I do not adhere to. I was born of man and lady, human in my spirit. Everything I stand for, feel for, you despised and hated. You decreed that everything we are, we should not ever be. And your God so good and great, we grovel, snivel, weep to thee, Lord. Jesus, can't you leave me? I would exorcise you. I see a world that deep defies your every word. Every moral, every rule is wrong, and no cry heard, Lord. Jesus, can't you leave me? I can live without you.
Dogma of all religions, and I'm not just having a go at Christianity, they're all the same for a very good reason, because homosexuality stopped procreation, and that was not approved of by any old religion. They wanted as many people to be born and to populate the earth as possible, so they invented this strange opinion, a law, rule, that you cannot be gay, you cannot fall in love with anybody of the same gender. Have you ever heard anything more ridiculous? I'm not against all organised religions. I think I've mentioned before, in some ways they can be very, very good. They do give a sort of moral standard to people who are not really capable of thinking like individuals. And let's face it, 99% of humanity are sheep and simply follow the rules that other people and religions have set down. So therefore, you mustn't do this, whether it's not eating fish on a Thursday but on a Friday, or not falling in love with somebody of the same gender. On every level, organised religions have a sort of pattern of behaviour for people that is set down for other reasons and tends not to be genuine and real, and certainly not for individuals. Not that individuals are able to make up their minds about much these days. Anyway, Granada is a very pretty little city, lovely to look at, from all sides, beautiful views. So that's it for A Victim Bites Back Show 12. A Victim Bites Back Show 13 will move from Granada to Valencia to Barcelona.
Ow!